Hello, you guys. So, as promised, we are now going to be talking about the world wonders. Here is my infamous list that my friends actually really hate because they're like, you shouldn't base your travels off of a list. But as you can see, we're just talking about the world wonders of architecture. They have now been completed. And I decided I'm going to make this into a maybe a 4-part series. This first part today, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I got into traveling, why I decided to follow this list, what is the story behind the list, how I feel about it overall. Then the second video, I'm going to talk about the architectural wonders that are on the list that I don't think deserve to be on the list, and I'll talk a little bit about why I think so. I haven't really decided yet if then in the second video I'm also going to talk about what architectural wonders I have seen in the world that I think should take the place of the ones that I don't think are that nice. Or what I'll do is make the second part just my least favorite ones of these. The third video will be my favorites, and then the last video in this series will be the ones that I would replace or I would add to this list because I really think they are worth seeing. And there are a lot of architectural wonders in the world that I think are really, really worth seeing that are not on the list, and I think that's a bit of an injustice. Okay, let me start by saying once I go on into the next videos, the way I decided to do it is I'm going to go from my least favorite world wonder to my favorite world wonder. That's the order I'm going to do. I was kind of going back and forth in which order should I do it. Should I put them in the order of when I visited them for the first time? Should I put them in the order of when they were built? Should I put them in the alphabetical order, etc.? And I thought it would just make the most sense for what I'm trying to bring across that I put them in the order of my least favorite to my favorite. Just so you guys are aware of that. And I actually did make notes, and I am going to try to do some editing. And I probably should have ironed this shirt before I started filming. So let me first go into how the World Wonder List was put together, and then I'll talk about like my backstory of why I'm doing this lifestyle. No, I should do it the other way around because that'll make more sense. So this is going to be a review for a lot of you guys already who follow my channel. For those of you who don't, who are just here for this travel guide, this might be new information. Basically, I suffer from a medical condition called multiple endocrine neoplasia. And people who have multiple endocrine neoplasia, they generally end up at some point in their life getting another secondary medical condition that's called Zollinger-Ellison. Throughout the entirety of my childhood, I was constantly being tested for Zollinger-Ellison because it's something that my father had, my grandfather, my uncle, my cousins. This is something that's in the male, in the males of my family. It's a genetic disorder that goes through the Y chromosome. And actually, when I was a kid, I don't think the link was there yet that Zollinger-Ellison is actually a syndrome that comes from multiple endocrine neoplasia. So when I was a kid, I was already getting tested for Zollinger-Ellison all the time, but I never had it. Whereas if they had at that time already known that they could have just done like a genetic profile to see if I carry the chromosome that is affected by multiple endocrine neoplasia, they probably could have already in my youth told me that I do have that. So anyway, I was in my last year of my bachelor's degree at UCLA, and I went for, I would say, a relatively routine checkup. I was still constantly getting checked for Zollinger-Ellison, whatever, and it just so happened that one of the leading experts in the field of multiple endocrine neoplasia worked at the hospital that was associated with UCLA, and he did genetic testing and everything on with me. And at that time, when they got all the results back, he was like, okay, well, I'm sorry to have to inform you that this syndrome has become active with you, and chances are you're not going to live a very long life. And most likely it's going to be the same way it was with my father and my grandfather and my uncle and my cousins, who all died in their early to mid 50s. And at that point in time, I kind of was like, all right, well, I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's so horrible and that's so morbid, and they feel really uncomfortable talking about death. But I always tell people, to me, it was a blessing in disguise, because knowing that I had a foreshortened life forced me to say, well, I'm going to make a point out of living my life. So I really dropped what my plans were up to that point, and I said, I'm going to do the one thing that I always really wanted to do, and that's travel the world. But at that time, I didn't really know, okay, so how should I go about doing this? And maybe this is just the German in me. I was like, I want to have a plan. I want to have some kind of, this is the way I'm going to go about doing it. And then I found out about the fact that there was a new World Wonder List that was created in 2007. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to use that as my baseline of my travels. I'm going to try to see all of the world wonders before I pass away. And so it kind of became like this was the anchor of all my travels. And I didn't only travel the world based off of the world wonders, but it was one of the things that always kind of brought me back. So I kind of was like, at some point in time, I also told myself I want to live on every continent, with the exception of Antarctica, which I've now also achieved. I've lived on every continent in the world. And other little things have kind of started becoming things I wanted to do in my travels. And a lot of, frankly, arbitrary rules that I started creating, like I have to see the capital city in every country or it doesn't count as me having visited there. I started collecting postcards and patches and stuff like that. But like I said, this World Wonder List was always kind of like my anchor. I always wanted to come back to saying like, okay, I've seen everything that's on this World Wonder List. And as a reminder to those of you guys who do follow my channel, you know that this World Wonder List comes in 3 parts. The first part is World Wonders of Architecture. And I wanted to see not only the official 7 World Wonders, I also wanted to see all the backups. The second one is World Wonder Cities. And again, I didn't want to see just the official winners. I wanted to see all the backups. And then the third category is World Wonders of Nature. And clearly, not just want to see the official winners, I wanted to see all the backups. That's why when you look at the list, you're like, can you not count? That's not 7, that's like 21. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm counting the 7 official and all the backups. So at the time when I found out about this new 7 World Wonder List, I kind of was just like, okay, that's gonna be my main course of action towards this traveling life. I didn't really research this foundation at all. I didn't go like, okay, how were these world wonders picked? What is their significance? Yada yada. I had at that time just assumed that maybe somebody who already was a world traveler, or like a company that creates travel books, or I don't know, National Geographic, sorry, not National Enquirer, the National Geographic, maybe they had sponsored this by, somebody who, there's those people who do those travel shows or something, that they created this list. So I thought that was kind of the basis of it. So I was like, okay, these must be things that are really, really worth seeing. Yeah, and then I would say I officially started my traveling life, my nomadic traveling life, in 2012. And yeah, it took till 2024 for me to see all of the world wonders of architecture. I still have a couple of things open for world wonders of cities and world wonders of nature, which hopefully I will be able to also complete within the next 2 or 3 years. Hopefully more 2 years, because I am getting sicker and I can tell that my body is just, I'm kind of running out of time. But yeah, so it took me 12 years to be able to see all of the world wonders of architecture. And in the time that I started seeing these architectural wonders, I already then kind of started thinking, this is really weird. Like, this world wonder has such a crazy backstory. Like, it was built thousands of years ago and was able to survive all this time and abuse and the weather and the changing surroundings of like the cultures and everything, and being passed on from one culture to the next. And then some of the other world wonders, I was kind of like, this was just built like 100 years ago. Why is this in competition with another thing on this list? Like, that to me at that time already didn't make sense. And then on top of that, going to certain places where I was like, oh my God, this is insane. This is such an insane architectural wonder. Like, how were they able to achieve this? How were they able to do this? And then again, looking back at my list and being like, okay, why is this not a wonder and something else is? And that's why I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background on how this World Wonder list was created, because when I went to Timbuktu in February of this year, I actually finally sat down and was like, you know what, maybe I need to research a little bit about how this list was created, what was the point of it. And so to give you guys a little context of that, this World Wonder list was basically just the foundation, new 7 World Wonders. They basically just created an online survey. Around 2007 is when they announced the winners, so I'm assuming it was around 2006 or so. And they basically just made it an open voting system. So people all around the world just wrote in what they thought should have been an architectural world wonder. Now, myself having been and being, I mean, it's still happening currently, a world traveler, I have now been to over 100 countries. And I've lived on, like I said, every continent. I've lived in, I think, 10 countries, not 11 countries. I have the good fortune of having been exposed to a lot of different cultures and architectures and foods and different nature and all this kind of stuff. So I think I have expertise, for lack of a better word, in this field to be able to kind of say this deserves to be on an architectural wonder list and this does not. So the fact that it was just an open voting system, sorry, I keep playing with my shirt because I have this big wrinkle here that's bothering me. The fact that it was just an opening system, I can see to where it seems like it would be a fair way to give everybody a voice around the world to get a chance to vote. And I can see that maybe that was the thought process behind them doing this. The problem with this, though, is these are not experts in this field. And the vast majority of people on the planet, and this is something I'm aware of, and I'm so grateful for it. I say this in all of my videos, how grateful I am to be able to have lived the life that I do, because I know that the vast majority of people will not and cannot live this lifestyle. If you've only ever lived in your own home country and never been outside of it, you don't really have the know-how to vote on this in a way that makes sense. So, spoiler alert, we're going to talk already right here, like, you know, my very last world wonder was the Sydney Opera House. That's about 15-minute walk from where I live now. And my personal belief is probably just every single Australian, you know, they probably voted for that. Maybe a lot of these Australians have never left Australia and they were just kind of like, wow, this is such an iconic building, like, to Australia, we're going to vote for that to be a world wonder. And I don't want to diss these people by doing that, but the point is, like, Australia is a relatively new country in that. And almost all the architecture in Australia is very modern and new. And to compare the Sydney Opera House to something like the pyramids in Egypt that were built 5,000 years ago, it just overall doesn't make sense. it just you can't put these two things on the same list. Like, the Opera House is not a wonder. It was built in the 1950s and 60s. Like, this is modern times. In modern times, there's a lot of these types of buildings that, with enough funding, we could build them. So I think that was a bit of a fallacy in creating world wonders based off of this kind of metric. I think they should have used experts. They should have used people who have been around the world. They should have been people who have been exposed to a lot of different architecture, and especially knowing, maybe they should have also put some kind of parameters on this list by saying, like, okay, all of the buildings had to have been built. For them to be on this list, they would have had to have been built before the year 1800 or 1700 or something like that. When the means of building and creating this kind of architecture still was very limited. And it really is a wonder that they were able to have the ingenuity and the understanding of engineering to put these things together. So I actually have to say, now that I am getting a little bit sicker and my trip to Timbuktu really, really, it sounds really dramatic, but it did almost kind of kill me. I was completely at the end of my rope trying to get this Timbuktu in, because I was like, I have to see everything on this list. I just absolutely have to get there. I have to be able to do it all. I have to be able to see it all. And the amount of physical and mental discomfort I put myself through to see Timbuktu, which, by the way, is actually one of the world wonders I do agree with, and I think it does belong on the list. But overall, I'm kind of questioning that this was the basis of my travels now, because it's completely arbitrary. It's not as if some kind of expert created this list and I can be like, well, these were the experts and they really knew what they were talking about, so it makes sense that I use this as an anchor of my nomadic lifestyle. The fact that it's completely arbitrary and it was just voted on by random people who might have never even been outside of their own country, I'm kind of like, I can't believe I really anchored my travels on this aspect of it. So when I get into the second and the third video and I kind of start tearing this list apart, I kind of want people to know the background of why I'm doing this, so that they don't take it. It's the internet. People are going to be offended no matter what you say. You could say you love something and someone's going to be offended. You can say you hate it. They're going to be offended by it. But for people to get a little bit of context as to why I'm saying it doesn't even necessarily always mean that I don't like this architectural marvel. I just don't think it belongs on a World Wonders list in comparison to a lot of the things I have seen and been exposed to that I think deserve more so to be on that list. One of the things I'm also going to do, you guys, if you want, I want to make sure I don't forget anything. I'm going to, I already talked with my friend Enrica and my friend Natalia about this. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of research. I'm going to try to make these videos be a little bit more coherent, a little bit more edited than what my videos normally are. So I was like, I want to do a little bit of more research into what all these architectural wonders are, when they were built, why did they decide to make a new World Wonders list, what the parameters were, how they went about doing it. And I finally also decided to look up on if there was ever like an official announcement ceremony of what the new 7 World Wonders was going to be. And there was. It was in Lisbon, Portugal in 2007. And I'm going to link the videos to this announcement ceremony. But I have to honestly tell you guys, I watched those and I felt so much secondary embarrassment. Is that how you say that in English? Watching those videos, and I was like, I cannot believe I anchored my world traveling experience on this, because it is the most ridiculous, random, poorly thought out like ceremony I've ever seen. It is so it is just so all over the place. The choreography is off, the singing is off. It's just so bad. And I literally just had this, it's so cringy, and I kind of was like, wow, I can't believe that the amount of time and effort and struggle and I put into trying to see all of these world wonders and experience them all, and the things I put myself through, like with Timbuktu or the Sundarbans, hopefully I'm saying that right, in India, which was also like really hard to get to and plan. There's a couple of things on the list that were really, really difficult to try to figure out how can I see these things, and for it to find out that it was put together by such a chaotic foundation and they didn't seem to have any real vision and it's so arbitrary, that really kind of made me go, wow. Like, again, of course I'm really happy that I've been able to have this lifestyle, that I've been able to see all these things. I'm very, very, very grateful, and I'm really grateful to now be able to sit down with you guys and, you know, hopefully maybe if anybody out there is also thinking about getting into this lifestyle, that I can maybe steer them away from necessarily having this list or having a list in general. I know that under the circumstances that I kind of needed a list to kind of give me a jump start as to what it is or how I wanted to travel. But I also have to say, with my medical conditioning getting worse and worse and worse, I also have to say having this list that I now feel is almost compulsory for me is actually really bad, because of, you know, my friend Bill Godot tells me, you know, it's like it's all about just like checking that box, checking that box, checking that box, and it does become really, it becomes bad when you are starting to travel and doing things not necessarily because of your own personal convictions and your enjoyment and your love for doing it, but it does become because you're like, part of you is like, well, I have this list and I have to complete this list, and if I don't complete this list, then I'm a failure of some sort, right? And I'm very, very close. Actually, let me check really quick my list. I am missing I'm missing 2 cities, Durban in South Africa and Vigan in the Philippines, for World Wonder Cities, and I'm missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things off of the World Wonders. So I'm relatively close, and of those 7, these are all things except for 2 of them, they're all in this part of the world. So I know I'm going to continue it after I'm telling you guys, don't base your travel experience off of a list. You know, do it out of your own passion and your own love and your own interests, and I think it's going to take you further, and you're not going to end up feeling very trapped with the experience like I do at this point. Because if I really would be able to put that list aside, I know I personally can't, because that's my personality trait. What is that, like type A personality, I think is what they call it. I would probably be done with my traveling life now if I didn't have so many arbitrary lists. Even I have to live on every continent at least once, because to be completely honest, Australia was never a place I was that interested in, but because I at some point in time decided I have to live on every continent at one point in time, I was like, well, I have to move to Sydney, because it's become this arbitrary thing that I have to check off, you know, with just the kind of personality I have. And that's just something I would try to warn other people who are interested in world traveling to really go based off of what really you just see as your own interest, you know. And even if it's something as like, I just want to see only Asia, I don't need to see any other part of the world, then only go and see Asia, and don't let other people tell you, oh, because in the world traveler community, which there are, you know, a couple of thousand of us, I belong to like 2 or 3 Facebook groups. You know, I told you guys my friend Iran, who is from Australia, he was like my mentor, who got me into this like teaching and traveling lifestyle. You know, he's been to a lot of places. There is, and I'm not talking about Iran right now. He's never made me feel this way. But like, there is other people in this community who really, really are kind of like, oh, well, if you haven't spent this much time in the country, if you haven't done these 10 things in the country, then it doesn't count as having traveled there, and you're not a real world traveler. If you haven't had this or this experience, if you haven't been to these and these places, you're not a real world traveler. And I'm somebody who was really easily in the past, more so than now, but I might have in the past allowed myself to be talked into believing that that's true, and that's garbage. Travel based off of what your interests are. And even if you say the only place in the world I want to see is Spain, and every vacation I'm going to go to Spain, then do that, and don't let anybody tell you badly about it or talk down on you for it. Like, if that's a completely legitimate thing to want to do and see and immerse yourself in. Spain is a beautiful country anyway, in my opinion. And don't allow yourself to be bogged down by arbitrary, and this is very arbitrary. If you're gonna let yourself be bogged down, at least find an expert like me who's gonna tell you where to go in video 3 or 4. Okay, let me double check. How was the list? Just which order, favorite to least? I already said that. I said that I was gonna link. Yeah. Okay, so I think we did it for this part 1 of World Wonders Architecture. Part 2 hopefully will be up within a week or so. The thing is, I have to do a lot of editing for part 2 and 3 and potentially 4, because I want to insert pictures and maybe a couple of videos or something like that. And you guys know that editing is something I really don't enjoy doing. But I think to do justice to these videos and in this overall, I think I'm gonna have to break down and do it. So have a little bit of patience with me, you guys. I'm not very good at editing because I have no interest in it, and it's something I find very time consuming and boring. So hopefully those videos will be up. Part 2 in a week, part 2 in 2 weeks, part 3 if I make part 4, sorry, if I make another one, you know, so on and so on. You guys, please comment. I will tell you guys, I never try to force anybody to subscribe. If you're not interested in subscribing, I don't ever tell people to like or share my videos, because I don't believe in that. You guys are adults. You can decide what you like or who you want to like share or who you want to subscribe to. But I would love to hear comments from you guys. If you've ever heard of this World Wonder List, is there anything that you have seen architecturally, this would really interest me the most, that regardless if it is on the list or not, that you have thought was so architecturally amazing and beautiful, with such an amazing and beautiful backstory that you're kind of like, I think this should be considered a world wonder? I would love to know that from you guys so I can look it up, see if I've been there or whatever. And overall, if you guys have any questions on what's next in life for me, now that this traveling chapter is pretty much over, I think I probably have the rest of this year, maybe next year, and then I'm really pretty much done. And if you have any questions on that, be safe, take care, comment, yeah, and hopefully you guys are doing well. Hello from Sydney. Bye.